I've always been the cool uncle, not in a flashy, leather jacket kind of way, but more in the shows up to birthday parties with Lego sets and listens when nobody else does kind of way. My name's Kevin. I'm 34, single, and child-free by choice. And yes, I've heard all the passive-aggressive comments about that. I work in marketing for a mid-sized software firm, which means I'm either in meetings, in transit, or online, juggling clients across 3 time zones and running on a diet of oat milk lattes and stress. But hey, I like my life. I worked hard to get it. I've got my own condo, I travel for work and pleasure, and I don't owe anyone an explanation for why my weekends don't involve soccer practice or PTA meetings. But if you ask my family, especially my older brother Matt, I'm just some guy who has it easy. Matt's 38, married with 3 kids under 10, and lives just 20 minutes from our childhood home, where my mom still lives. He and his wife, Tessa, both work full-time, and while I won't deny that raising kids is a lot, Matt tends to weaponize his stress like it's some kind of superiority badge. Every conversation somehow turns into a pissing contest where he's the only one drowning in real responsibilities, and the rest of us are just along for the ride. To be clear, I've always tried to be helpful. I've babysat. I've bought diapers and groceries without being asked. I've picked up last-minute birthday gifts and even chipped in for their oldest kid's braces when insurance didn't cover it all. I never made a big deal about it. That's just what family does, right? But lately, Matt's entitlement has taken on a new shape. More aggressive, less grateful. And my mom, she enables it. Not overtly, but through this subtle, amused silence. Like she thinks it's funny when he takes jabs at me. Because hey, boys will be boys. Anyway, all of this came to a head last Thursday. I had a work trip lined up to Chicago, a 3-day marketing summit with potential clients I'd been courting for months. Big deal for me. I was flying out Friday morning and had booked myself into a nice little hotel downtown, already dreaming of the deep dish pizza and the escape from my screens. That evening, I stopped by my mom's place for dinner. It was supposed to be low-key. She made lasagna, Matt and Tessa brought the kids, and I brought a bottle of wine she likes. Nothing fancy. I was mostly there out of obligation, not expecting any drama. But then again, I should have known better. Dinner started off fine. The kids were running around. My mom was talking about her garden, and Matt was griping about how early school drop-off was. He complained that traffic was bad, that one kid never finishes breakfast on time, that Tessa's meetings start too early to help, and that he's running on fumes. I nodded, made sympathetic noises, even offered to help pick up some groceries on Sunday when I got back. That's when he looked at me and said, super casually, like he was asking me to pass the salt, "Hey, you can skip your trip, right? Take the kids to school for once. I've got 2 client calls in the morning and Tessa's slammed too." I blinked mid-sip. "Skip my trip." He nodded like it made perfect sense. "Yeah, you don't need to go, do you? I mean, it's not like you have kids. You can reschedule." I stared at him. Was he serious? I laughed a little, thinking maybe this was some weird attempt at sarcasm. "Matt, it's a work trip. I've had this planned for weeks." He waved that off. "Come on, Kev. You're just going to schmooze and drink with clients. Must be nice." Tessa chuckled into her wine glass, not really looking at me. My mom didn't say anything, just sort of smiled, like she was watching a sitcom. And for a moment, I felt small, like I was some overgrown teenager being told to pull his weight around the house. I leaned forward, keeping my voice calm. "It's not happening, Matt. I've got meetings. This isn't optional." That's when he rolled his eyes. Full on, exaggerated eye roll like I'd just told him I couldn't because Mercury was in retrograde. "Must be nice," he said again, slower this time. "Having no real responsibilities." And then my mom, bless her heart, chuckled. Not a full laugh, but just enough to twist the knife. Like, haha, Kevin the free spirit can't be bothered to help out. I don't know what snapped in me in that moment. Maybe it was the tone. Maybe it was the years of little comments that I'd brushed off. Maybe it was just being tired of feeling like my choices made me some kind of second-class citizen in their eyes. But I smiled. Not because it was funny, because I was done. "You're right," I said, setting down my fork. "That's why I just unlinked my credit card from your grocery account." The table went still. Even the kids stopped whisper fighting over iPads. Matt froze, fork midair. Tessa turned toward me slowly, like maybe she'd misheard. And my mom? Her smile faltered. Because here's the thing. A while back, during the pandemic, Matt and Tessa hit a rough patch. Money was tight, grocery bills were high, and I quietly offered to help. I added my card to their online grocery account so they could order whatever they needed without going through me every time. No big speech. No strings attached. Just help because I could. But they never took it off. Even after Matt got a promotion. Even after Tessa went back to work. I noticed charges, snacks, wine, the fancy cereal their kids liked. A couple hundred here and there. I never said a word. Until now. Matt opened his mouth, closed it, then laughed, dry and forced. You're kidding. I just kept smiling. Nope. And that's when the temperature in the room dropped. Tessa looked at him like he should fix it. My mom looked at me like I'd broken some unspoken rule. But I didn't care. I was tired of being the easy target. The guy who never pushes back. Matt muttered something under his breath and stabbed a piece of garlic bread like it had personally offended him. Nobody said anything for a solid 2 minutes. It was the quietest family dinner I'd had in years. And that was just the beginning. Let me tell you what happened the next morning. Because if Matt thought I was being selfish before, he had no idea what was coming. I woke up Friday morning to a text from Matt. Matt, 6:38 a.m. I assumed the credit card thing was a joke. Tessa just tried to place the kids' school lunch order, and it didn't go through. I didn't answer. I was at the airport, half a bagel in my mouth, coffee in hand, boarding pass glowing on my screen. I wasn't in the mood for damage control. Not this time. Not after last night. It was weird. I'd slept better than I had in weeks, even though I knew there would be fallout. By the time I landed in Chicago, I had 4 missed calls. 2 from Matt. 1 from my mom. 1 from Tessa. I turned my phone off. The summit was a blur of suits, handshakes, and endless conversations over lukewarm coffee. I made my pitch, nailed the presentation, and closed a deal that could fund my team for the next 6 months. It should have felt amazing. But the moment I got back to the hotel, the stress hit me like a brick. There were 27 messages in the family group chat. 27. I didn't open them. Not right away. Instead, I sat on the edge of the hotel bed, scrolling through photos of the dinner from the night before that someone had posted. We looked like a normal family. Laughing, eating, smiling. But underneath it, something had cracked. When I finally opened the group chat, I realized the damage wasn't just emotional. It was strategic. Matt had decided to escalate. Mom. Kevin, I'm sure you didn't mean to cause trouble, but you could have told them before removing the card. Matt. Seriously, Kev? The kids didn't have lunch today. They had to borrow from another student. They were embarrassed. Tessa. I just don't understand why you're being so petty. This isn't like you. Mom. You're lucky you don't have children. You don't know what it's like to have to worry about meals and rides and pickups every single day. Matt. Honestly, I don't even want your help anymore if it comes with this attitude. Keep your money. We're fine. That was rich. Because 5 messages later. Matt. Actually, I just got the grocery bill. $189.46. You were going to pay that one, right? That was from Thursday morning. I exhaled so hard I almost laughed. It was like watching a man try to light a match while sitting in gasoline. I didn't respond. Not then. Not even the next day. I took the weekend for myself. Ordered room service. Walked by Lake Michigan. Watched a jazz trio at some random hotel bar and let myself be a person again. A person who didn't exist just to make someone else's life easier. When I got home Sunday evening, I found a printed letter in my mailbox. No envelope. Just folded in half, shoved in like junk mail. Kev, I don't know what's going on with you, but I hope you come to your senses. This family has always helped each other. You're better than this. Don't turn your back on the people who love you. It wasn't signed, but it was clearly Mom. I could recognize the loop of her Y's from across a room. That part stung more than it should have. She didn't even call. She wrote me a letter, a passive-aggressive guilt bomb dropped into my mailbox like it was 1982. Still, I didn't say anything. I didn't say anything when my niece's birthday came around the next week and I wasn't invited. Didn't say anything when Matt posted a picture of her blowing out candles with the caption, "Surrounded by the people who actually show up." Didn't say anything when my mom reposted it with a row of heart emojis. But silence has a shelf life. The real breaking point came the following Saturday. I had plans. A friend from college was visiting, and we were meeting for lunch at a downtown cafe. I was halfway through a sandwich when my phone started buzzing. It was my mom. I let it go to voicemail. Then Matt. Then my mom again. 3 missed calls. I finally picked up on the 4th ring, thinking maybe something serious had happened. Kevin, my mom said without so much as a hello. Where are you? Out, I said slowly, wary. Why? Well, she said, her voice getting tight. Matt said you were taking the kids to the museum today. They've been waiting on the porch for 20 minutes. I froze. What? You said you'd take them today? She insisted. You promised. I could feel my heart rate climbing. No, I didn't. I never said that. When would I have said that? There was a pause. Well, Matt said you offered. He said you felt bad about last week and offered to take them so they could get out of the house. I didn't, I said firmly. I never said that. He made that up. There was another pause, heavier this time. Well, they're waiting. What do you want me to tell them? I was stunned. Tell them the truth, Mom. That their dad lied to them. Silence. Then, click. She hung up. I stared at the phone like it had betrayed me. My friend asked if everything was okay. I nodded, but I wasn't really listening anymore. When I got home that evening, there was another note on my door. This time, it was from Tessa. It was really disappointing for the kids to get stood up like that. I hope you realize how much they look up to you. Don't make promises you can't keep. It's cruel. No mention of Matt. No mention of the fact that I never made any promises in the first place. Just a neat little jab, folded in printer paper. That night, I called Matt. Straight to voicemail. I didn't leave a message. I called my mom. She picked up, but her voice was cold. Distant. You know, she said. I don't know what's gotten into you lately. You've changed. No, I said. I haven't. I just stopped pretending everything's okay when it's not. Well, you didn't used to be so selfish. That word again. Selfish. It echoed through my head like a hammer striking steel. I wanted to yell. To explain. To remind her of every grocery bill, every late night call, every time I rearranged my schedule so Matt and Tessa could have a date night or deal with a sick kid. But I didn't. Because none of that mattered anymore. I hung up. Calmly. Quietly. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel guilty. The next day, I logged into the shared family calendar, the one my mom used to track holidays and birthdays, and who was bringing what to Thanksgiving, and I removed myself. Just like that. I logged out, deleted the invite, and cleared every reminder from my phone. I figured that would be the end of it. But the thing about people like Matt is that they don't back off. They double down. On Tuesday, I got a call from HR at work. Apparently, someone had called my office, claiming to be a parent of a child I had endangered. The receptionist said the caller was worried about my stability and mentioned something about abandoning children at a museum. Of course, HR didn't take it seriously. The story didn't add up. But the fact that it happened at all, that's when I knew this wasn't just family tension anymore. This was a campaign. And that was the moment, the exact moment, something inside me shifted. Because if Matt wanted war, he'd just declared it. You ever have one of those moments where you're just sitting alone in your apartment, staring at your ceiling, and you realize you've become the villain in someone else's story, and not because you did anything wrong, but because you finally stopped letting people walk over you? That was me. Sitting on my couch in the half-dark, pizza box still open on the coffee table, unread emails blinking on my laptop screen, and a half-warm beer in my hand. I wasn't even watching TV, just listening to the faint hum of traffic outside and the dull throb of my thoughts. Matt had tried to sabotage my job. Let that sink in. My brother, someone I'd trusted, helped, defended more times than I could count, had picked up the phone, called my workplace, and tried to plan a narrative that I was unstable. All because I'd set a boundary. All because I said no. He didn't just cross a line. He burned the whole field. But here's the thing they never tell you about hitting rock bottom. It's quiet. Nobody claps. Nobody warns you. You just wake up one day and realize that the people you've spent years trying to please would throw you under a bus if it meant making their lives easier. And when that realization hits, it's like oxygen in your lungs for the first time in weeks. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just shut everything off. I stopped responding to the group chat. I muted their numbers. I blocked Matt's work email after he tried sending me a clarification about what he told HR, as if pretending it was a concerned call would erase the fact that he tried to ruin my career. I even let calls from my mom go unanswered. It was easier to breathe that way, to think. But isolation doesn't heal wounds. It just gives you a quiet place to feel them. And man, did I feel it. I'd always been the go-to guy, the helper, the fixer. And now, I was just floating. No invitations. No check-ins. Nothing. There was this one night, maybe 2 weeks after the HR call, where I came home late from work and found a birthday card on my doorstep. It was from my youngest niece. a card I used to help her pick out when she was too little to spell her own name. This time, the handwriting was neat, practiced, clearly her mom's doing. Inside it said, "We missed you at the party. Daddy says you're on a break from family. Hope you come back soon." There was a smiley face drawn in the corner. In crayon. I sat down on my doorstep and cried. Not loud, not messy. Just that quiet, gut-wrenching kind of crying you do when you finally realize that no matter how much you love someone, they can still become part of the pain you have to walk away from. That was my fall. Not dramatic. Just a slow fade from someone who showed up to someone who'd finally learned what it meant to walk away. But falling gives you perspective. I started doing something I hadn't done in a long time. I took inventory of me. Not who I was to other people. Not the helper, not the dependable uncle, not the emergency contact or free babysitter, but who I was when nobody needed anything from me. Turns out, that guy's not so bad. I started going to the gym again. Not to punish myself or chase some Instagram fantasy, just to move. To feel like I had control over something, even if it was just a treadmill. I reached out to old friends I hadn't seen in years. People I'd drifted from not because anything went wrong, but because I was always too busy helping with someone else's problems. I joined a trivia night at a pub 3 blocks from my condo. It sounds silly, but it felt like a win just showing up. Nobody knew me there. Nobody cared that I used to buy birthday cakes or drive carpool when I wasn't a parent. I was just Kevin, and that was enough. Work picked up too. After the Chicago summit, a client I'd pitched came through big. We landed a contract that practically doubled our quarterly numbers. My boss pulled me aside and said, "Whatever you're doing, keep doing it." And I smiled. Because for once, I was the project I'd been investing in. Even so, the ghost of my family lingered. Every now and then, I'd hear from a cousin or an aunt, asking if I was coming to Thanksgiving or if I'd reached out to Matt. I'd always reply politely, briefly, but I never offered details. One Saturday afternoon, I ran into my mom at the grocery store. She was standing in the produce section, holding a bruised apple and squinting at a bag of grapes like they'd personally insulted her. She looked up and saw me. I thought maybe she'd smile. Maybe she'd hug me. But all she said was, "Kevin." I nodded. "Hey." We stood there for a beat, two familiar strangers among the citrus. "You've lost weight," she said, like it was a crime. "I've been working out," I replied. She picked at the edge of the grape bag. "Matt says you're still not talking to him." "I'm not," I said, meeting her eyes. "He tried to get me fired." She blinked, like she hadn't expected me to say it out loud. "He didn't mean it like that. He was just stressed. You know how he gets." I nodded slowly. "Yeah, I do. And I'm done excusing it." Her jaw tightened. "Families fight, Kevin. That doesn't mean you just walk away. Families also protect each other," I said quietly. And he didn't. She didn't reply. Just set the grapes down and walked past me toward the dairy aisle like the conversation hadn't happened. That night, I sat at my kitchen table, staring at a family photo from 5 years ago, Christmas Eve, everyone in matching pajamas, even me. I remembered how Matt had grumbled the whole time about the outfit, but still smiled for the camera. How Tessa had burned the cookies and blamed it on a timer that lied. How Mom had laughed so hard she spilled her wine. It had felt real then. Good. But now I could see it for what it was, a snapshot. Not a reflection of closeness, but of effort. My effort. Me trying to hold everyone together. And maybe that's what hurt most. Not that they'd taken me for granted, but that they hadn't even noticed they were doing it. Still, something else stirred in me that night. Not anger. Not bitterness. Something quieter. A kind of resolve. I realized I didn't want revenge, not the way people imagine it, anyway. I didn't want to get back at Matt or shame my mom or prove anything to anyone. What I wanted was to take back my story. To live a life that didn't need validation from people who only noticed me when I was useful. So I started planning. Not a scheme. Not a trap. Just a quiet reset. I changed my emergency contacts at work. Removed Matt. Added 2 close friends instead. I created a new will. Not because I was paranoid, just because it was time. I named my godson from college, whose dad had once said I was more like a brother than a friend, as the beneficiary for my investment account. I took my name off the joint Amazon account my mom still used, one I'd been paying the Prime subscription on for 9 years without question. I opened a new credit card and slowly began transferring all my auto payments to it, leaving the old one to expire in a few months. Each move was small, silent. But it was like pulling weeds from a garden I hadn't realized was overrun. And somewhere in the middle of all that, I started writing again. I used to write short stories in college. Nothing fancy, just quiet little tales about people navigating weird families, or awkward jobs, or strange moments of transformation. I'd forgotten how much I loved it. One night, I wrote a story about a man who kept building bridges for people who never crossed them. Until one day, he burned them all and built a house instead. I posted it anonymously on a forum. The next day, someone commented, "I needed this. Thank you." And I sat back in my chair and smiled. Not because I was healing, not because everything was fixed, but because, for once, I didn't feel invisible. I wasn't a villain. I wasn't a doormat. I wasn't a walking wallet or a backup babysitter or an emotional punching bag. I was Kevin, and I was still here, still rising, still building something new. What happened next? Well, that's where things start to get interesting. Because just when I thought they'd moved on without me, just when I thought the worst was over, Matt did something so calculated, so entitled, it made everything up to that point look like child's play. And this time, I wasn't going to let it slide. It happened on a Tuesday. Not a dramatic day, not a holiday, not a birthday. Just a boring, middle-of-the-week Tuesday that started with coffee, emails, and a grocery run on my lunch break. I was checking out at the self-scan kiosk when my phone buzzed. It was from Claire, my old college roommate's wife. She rarely texted me unless it was a group invite or a heads-up about a mutual friend's baby shower. But this time, Claire, 11:41 a.m. "Hey Kevin, just saw your brother posted something weird on Facebook. Thought you should know." I froze with one hand still on the touch screen, tapping through a bag of grapes. I read the message again. Then, like someone flipping a light switch in my brain, I grabbed my phone, abandoned the cart mid-checkout, and walked out of the store with my heart pounding. My stomach turned as I opened Facebook. I'd unfollowed Matt a few months back, but hadn't blocked him, partly out of curiosity, partly because I thought maybe, just maybe, there'd be some hint of remorse. There never was. Mostly vacation photos, tired girl dad, memes, and the occasional martyr-style rant about how some people don't understand the pressure of being a real adult. But this post? This was different. It was a fundraiser. Help Matt and Tessa provide a stable future for our kids. We've had a rough year. Family stress, financial setbacks, and now our oldest needs urgent dental surgery. We hate asking, but we're reaching out to our community for help. Anything helps, even a share. Thank you. Attached was a photo of their daughter, my niece, smiling shyly, her front teeth visible and perfectly fine. The post had over 80 shares, 100 comments, and donations rolling in. I scrolled past the names. Old family friends, co-workers, neighbors, people offering sympathy, support, money, and one line, halfway down the page, that made my jaw clench. We used to have a relative helping, but he's since cut us off completely. No name, but everyone knew. Of course they did. I felt the familiar anger rise up, hot and sharp. But this time, something else came with it. A strange calm. Not defeat, but clarity. Cold, calculating clarity. Matt had taken it too far. Again. And this time, it wasn't just manipulation or lies whispered behind closed doors. He was conning people, framing me as the villain, profiting off it. And worse, he was using his own daughter's face to do it. That's when I knew it was time. No more silence. No more hoping he'd realize what he was doing. No more giving him the benefit of the doubt just because we shared blood. This wasn't about making him pay. Not yet. It was about stopping him. And if I wanted to do that right, I needed to play the long game. So I started making calls. First, I reached out to an old friend from college, Danny. She worked in digital forensics now, helping companies track phishing scams and fraud across donation platforms. I explained the situation. Carefully. Honestly. She didn't even hesitate. "Send me the link," she said. "I'll see what I can dig up." If he's faking medical info to get money, some of these platforms take that very seriously. Next, I called my accountant. "Do you know if family-run fundraisers are reportable income?" I asked. "Depends on how it's handled," he replied. "Technically, gifts under a certain threshold aren't taxed. But if they're using a platform that generates a 1099 and they don't report it, it becomes sticky fast." I thanked him and hung up, then pulled up the fundraiser again. Sure enough, they were using a site that issued tax forms after $600. Interesting. Later that night, I found the perfect match to light this powder keg. A public post from Tessa's Instagram just 3 days before the fundraiser launched. A boomerang video of her sipping wine with the caption, "Date night. Finally treating ourselves. Hashtag self-care. Hashtag nanny got it covered." So much for financial setbacks. But even that wasn't the smoking gun. No, that came later, after Danny got back to me with a forwarded email chain between the fundraiser platform and someone who'd flagged the campaign as suspicious. Apparently, I wasn't the only one who noticed the inconsistencies. A coworker of Matt's, anonymous but clearly fed up, had submitted a complaint and asked for verification of the child's medical need. According to Danny, the platform requested supporting documentation. Matt never replied. Strike one. Now here's the thing. I could have reported him myself. Sent a complaint. Flagged the post. But that would have triggered Matt's defenses. He'd know it was me, and spin a whole new sob story about how I was trying to ruin his reputation or undermine his parenting. I needed something cleaner, sharper. So I waited. And while I waited, I built. I started documenting everything. Every screenshot. Every receipt. Every text. I even compiled a timeline. When I'd started helping with groceries, when I'd unlinked the card, the dinner incident, the museum lie, the HR call, the fundraiser launch, the donation amounts. I stored it all in a private Google Drive folder called "In Case He Pushes." Because let's be honest, he always pushed. But I wasn't just planning for defense. I was planning for impact. Remember my friend Claire? The one who tipped me off? She worked in nonprofit PR now. And when I told her the whole story, her jaw dropped. "Kev, this isn't just shady," she said. "It's manipulative and unethical. If he's misusing medical claims, the fundraiser site could ban him permanently. Maybe even notify the IRS." I nodded slowly. Would it help if someone in the community spoke up? Her eyes lit up. Actually, yeah. You'd be surprised how fast things escalate when someone close to the person quietly drops a few receipts in the right inbox. We talked strategy. No public posts. No drama. Just quiet exposure. She agreed to help me draft a statement. Neutral, fact-based, and emotion-free. The kind that wouldn't scream revenge, but would whisper integrity. While Claire worked on the draft, I did something else. I reached out to my niece's school. Not to snitch. Not to cause a scene. But to clarify. I emailed the school's administrative office under my full name, politely inquiring whether the school had any documentation of upcoming medical procedures or notices regarding the dental surgery mentioned in the fundraiser, something I might have overlooked as an involved family member. 3 days later, I got a response. "Thank you for your concern, Mr. Hughes. To our knowledge, there is no scheduled dental surgery on record for, name redacted, at this time." I forwarded that email to Danny, then added it to the drive. By now, the fundraiser had passed $3,000. People were generous. I hated that. Worse, Matt had posted an update thanking everyone and claiming they'd found a dental clinic willing to do the surgery at a discount. Another lie. Another string in the web. And then, the perfect storm hit. Claire finished the letter. It was professional, concise, written from the perspective of a concerned third party close to the family who'd noticed troubling inconsistencies in the fundraiser details. Attached were screenshots, date discrepancies, and the school email, redacted where necessary. Claire submitted it to the platform's fraud team under a burner email. We waited. Meanwhile, I kept laying the groundwork for the next phase, preparing not just to stop the damage, but to reclaim my name. To make sure Matt never weaponized my silence again, I called a friend who ran a podcast on family estrangement and financial abuse. We'd spoken before. She knew my story. When I offered to anonymously share a version of it for her upcoming episode on boundaries and backlash, she said, "Absolutely." I recorded a 10-minute voice note, changed names, smudged timelines, but the heart was real. It aired a week later. And guess who heard it? My cousin, Gina, one of the few family members who still talked to both sides. She messaged me immediately. "Was that you on the podcast?" I knew it sounded familiar. "Kevin, wow." She didn't accuse, didn't push, just said, "I'm proud of you for speaking up. A lot of us have seen how Matt is, but nobody ever says anything." That message? That was the moment I knew I wasn't alone. It's funny how one voice, even disguised, can echo louder than 100 rumors. And then, 3 days later, it happened. The fundraiser went dark. Not deleted, suspended. An update popped up saying the campaign had been temporarily paused pending verification. All donation buttons were removed. Comments were locked. The ripple was immediate. People started asking questions. Quietly at first, then not so quietly. And Matt, he panicked. The next morning, he showed up at my front door. Disheveled. Angry. A printed folder in one hand. "You think you're so clever," he snapped before I could even say hello. "You did this. Don't play dumb." I leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. "Did what?" He shoved the folder at me. "You're sabotaging my family. You're trying to make me look like a criminal." I flipped through the pages, a hodgepodge of printed screenshots, emails, even a blurry photo of me with Claire from 2 years ago. "You're digging up dirt on your own brother," he hissed. "How does that make you look?" I looked him square in the eye. Calm. Unshaken. Like someone who's finally done letting you take advantage of him. He stared at me, waiting for me to blink. Apologize. Crack. But I didn't. I'd waited a long time for this moment. And it wasn't even the end. He didn't expect me to shut the door in his face. He stood there, holding that sad little folder like it was a badge of honor, like he'd exposed me. Like I was the one who'd crossed the line. But I'd learned something in the months since I started pulling back. People like Matt need the spotlight. They need the stage. And they expect you to play along, to explain yourself, to argue, to defend. So instead, I just said, "You should go," and closed the door. He stood outside for a full minute, pounding twice more before finally leaving. I didn't watch from the window. I didn't have to. That wasn't the moment I was waiting for. The moment came 4 days later. I was in a team meeting when my phone buzzed, not once, but twice in quick succession. I glanced down to see 2 notifications from Claire. Claire, 11:17 a.m., it's happening. Claire, 11:19 a.m., they just pulled the whole fundraiser. Statement incoming. I excused myself from the call, stepped into the hallway, and opened the app. Sure enough, the page was gone, replaced by a default message. "This fundraiser has been removed for violating our terms of service. Funds may be withheld pending investigation." Underneath that, in much smaller text, "We take fraud seriously. If you believe you have been misled or have concerns about a donation, please contact our support team here." I checked the comments. They were gone. All of them. But people had already started talking. An old neighbor of Matt's posted a cryptic Facebook status. "Funny how some people cry wolf until someone finally checks the sheep." A former coworker commented, "Some of us knew. Others are just finding out. Either way, about time." And then the text started. First from my cousin Gina. "Gina, 12:03 p.m. You see it? OMG. Aunt Linda is livid. I guess she donated $250. Then from an unknown number that turned out to be one of Matt's former coworkers. "Hi Kevin. Sorry to bother you, but I just wanted to say thank you." A few of us knew he was lying, but nobody wanted to say it first. And then, finally, from Matt himself. Not a call. Not a voicemail. Just one text. "Matt, 3:46 p.m. You've ruined my life." I stared at it for a while. I didn't reply. There was nothing left to say. Because the thing is, I hadn't ruined anything. He did. He was the one who lied, who manipulated, who weaponized his kids, his wife, his own family's goodwill. All I did was stop covering for him. All I did was stop being silent. That silence had protected him for years. Once it broke, the rest came down like matchsticks in a windstorm. Later that week, I got a call from a woman named Susan at the fundraising platform. She couldn't share everything, policy, confidentiality, the usual, but she did thank me for the materials we provided. "Let's just say," she added, carefully, "your report helped us confirm a few things we'd already been investigating." Translation: Matt was already on thin ice. I just gave them a reason to cut the rope. Apparently, they'd been tracking a pattern, multiple fundraisers over the years from the same IP address. Unexpected repairs. Child needs medication. Family travel emergency. All with vague wording. All pulling in a few hundred here, a few thousand there. None ever verified. I asked what would happen next. She paused. "If there's sufficient cause, we notify the IRS," she said. "Beyond that, we reserve the right to ban the user and freeze access to any linked bank accounts used for fraud." I thanked her, hung up, sat in silence. It was over, but also just beginning. Because the fallout? That came hard. A week later, I got another letter in my mailbox. This one in my mom's handwriting again, not typed, not folded with any care. Just crumpled paper shoved through like she couldn't bear to touch it longer than necessary. "I don't know what you think you accomplished, Kevin. He's your brother. Blood doesn't just disappear because you're mad. You humiliated this family. Whatever he did, you should have handled it privately. Now everyone's talking. Even the pastor called. No apology. No acknowledgement of the lies. Just blame. Classic. I didn't respond. Instead, I mailed her something else, a printout of the platform's fraud policy and a sticky note that said, if silence was supposed to save him, maybe someone should have taught him not to lie in the first place. I haven't heard from her since, but I did hear from someone else. Tessa. She called me on a Wednesday evening, voice shaking. I debated letting it go to voicemail, but curiosity got the better of me. Kevin, she started, no hello. I didn't know. I swear. I didn't know he was lying. I didn't say anything. I thought the money was for school supplies. He told me the dental thing was real. I even asked him, and he said he'd talk to the dentist. Still, I stayed quiet. I didn't even know about the other fundraisers, she continued. Or the tax stuff. I found out when the account got flagged and the bank called. I heard her sniff. She was crying, but not loudly, not dramatically. Quiet, tired crying. The kind that sounds like it's been happening for a while. I'm not asking you to fix anything, she said, finally. I just wanted to say I'm sorry. For believing him. For blaming you. For staying quiet when you needed someone to say something. And you know what? That apology meant more than I expected. Because it was the first one. The first real apology I'd gotten since this all began. And I told her that. I appreciate it, I said. I really do. She asked if I'd be willing to talk to the kids someday. I told her maybe, not now. But maybe. We hung up on a surprisingly human note. The months that followed were strangely peaceful. Matt lost a few friends. One or two stuck by him, but most ghosted quietly. His reputation, especially in the local parenting circles, was radioactive. Word travels fast when you scam people using your child's face. I heard he tried starting another fundraiser under a different name. It lasted 3 days before getting flagged and pulled. He also lost his side freelance gig, the one that paid for his weekend bar tabs and tech toys. The manager apparently heard about the fraud and decided to reevaluate the company's community partnerships. No formal charges were filed, as far as I know, but the damage was done. Social, financial, emotional. And me? I kept rising. I published an article, anonymous but honest, in a mid-size online magazine about financial boundaries with family. It went semi-viral, shared hundreds of times. A producer from a talk show even emailed me, asking if I'd come on as a guest for a segment on When Family Crosses the Line. I declined. I didn't need the attention, but I kept writing, speaking, helping others find their voice. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I was carrying something heavy alone. Because here's what nobody tells you about revenge. The best kind isn't loud. It's not fire and brimstone. It's not ruining someone's life with a headline or a public shaming. It's taking back your own. It's pulling your energy out of the people who drain you and reinvesting it in yourself. In your peace. In your dignity. Matt lost more than money or face. He lost the one person who always showed up when he called. And me? I finally learned the difference between helping out of love and being used out of habit. So no, I didn't ruin my family. I just stopped bleeding for people who never even brought a bandage. And that's the final line.